Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron and I am back with more Battlytics. This time we're doing, for the first time, maybe the last time, not the last time, we're doing a quad mech. This was popular demand by a couple of our patrons, very persistently asked for this wonderful mech. Now the Scorpion just recently got a facelift in the Mercenaries Kickstarter. Excited to get my hands on that. I actually saw one when I was out at Adepticon. A very, very cool looking little thing. So I wanted to look into it. I did some modifications to Battlytics so that it could handle quad mechs, specifically, you know, what happens in the mobility when it loses one leg, two leg, three leg, four leg, five leg. They don't have five legs, but that's the next thing that's going to happen. Just wait. They did tripods. So pentapods, I don't know. What's a five-leg mech called? You tell me. What would it even look like? So this thing is only four legs, but it's still very, very cool. Scorpion is 55 tons, and it has a nice basement bargain BV at only 1098. So that's very reasonably priced as far as 55 tonners go, I think. You know, some of the Shadowhawks are in that range. I think the Griffins and stuff are more in like the 12s, the 11s. So it's a little cheaper than that. I think it's more in par with like the Crab. So the Scorpion that I'm looking at tonight is the SCP-1O. So I'm going to tell you why I picked this one. This is the refit from 3049. I picked this one specifically because it upgrades the PPC to an erPPC. And you might say, Aaron, I hate the Inner Sphere erPPC. Why would you do this to me? I hate you. And I would apologize and hug you and tell you it's because the erPPC does not have a minimum range. And so if I'm pairing this weapon with an SRM6 and I'm a 6'9" movement profile, like I want to get as close as I can and not have to worry about somebody getting inside my minimum range of the PPC. So the standard loadout never really made sense to me. I don't know why they would choose an SRM6 over like an LRM5 or something, but it is what it is. So here we are. Scorpion SCP-1O moves 6'9", does not jump, has 10 double heat sinks, which, fun fact, according to Sarna, there was like a misprint, I guess, in one of the older TROs where it only had single heat sinks and it sucked. But then they changed it to double heat sinks. I think it was supposed to be double all the time. I don't know. You tell me. You lore buffs probably know this better than I do. Let's talk about the armor, or lack thereof. It only has 7 tons, 112 pips. It is woefully under armored. It is so sad. And this is another thing, I don't want to pontificate, but like, why would you put an SRM6 on a mech that can clearly use like another 2 tons of armor? Like, drop that thing down to a smaller gun and make it more survivable. I don't know. If you are playing against a Scorpion, I think that the strategy is to look at it funny and it will fall apart. But we'll see what Battlytics has to say about that. But maybe the offensive side makes up for it. Who knows, guys? Stay tuned. The numbers are coming your way on the Scorpion. All right. Here we are. The very dangerous Scorpion. Fear it. Fear the sting of the Scorpion. So this little guy does 100.4 points of damage. And it's like, you know, you're coming off the Grizzly that did like 300 something at only like 70 tons, which is what, 15 tons more than this thing? Now, granted, it was more than double the battle value, but this thing's doing 1/3 the amount of damage. It hurts me inside. You know, there's really no opportunity to generate heat. There's really not an opportunity to push it for more damage. And so you get what you get and you can't get upset. That's what they say. Let's look at the lethality index on this thing. Time to kill 12.06 turns. I mean, not the worst. We've definitely seen worse. Damage per hit is 4.9. Again, it's got that shotgun effect with the SRM6. Critical hits, 3.51. So even though it's only got 2 weapons, still generates a decent number of critical hits. But it only killed the Javelin, 30-ton mech, 50.3% of the time. So in half of the engagements, it was only able to kill the javelin 50.3% of the time in that 12-turn time box. So not ideal. Now, what does that say about the Scorpion overall? Maybe it's worth the 1,000 BB price tag. Maybe it's not. Let's check out the defense and see how it does. I'm not holding my breath on this one. Oh boy. So there she blows. The interesting thing about this armor distribution is it has a decent amount of armor on the center torso, and the rear torsos across the board are fairly well armored. The side torsos are up to spec, but again, that spec is only 55% coverage based on the tonnage that's allocated. The head is under armored as well, which is not the best thing, but only slightly. And the arms, I should say the front legs and the back legs all have the same armor. Now, when you do a quad mech, it's a little bit different. Like, it follows the normal leg pattern. So they do have more structure in those front arms, right? I believe it's 13 points. 13 points and all of the legs, right? The front legs, the back legs. And then they only have 10 points of armor. So less armor than structure. Again, I don't know who designed this one. And then I don't know who decided, like, yes, I want to buy that thing. It's like, cool, I'm going to spend all this money on this Corvette that's prone to catching fire and the wheels fall off when I'm doing 60 miles an hour. I don't know. Who would buy these things? Crazy people. But it is what it is. Scorpion's apparently a popular mech. I would 100% drop the SRM-6 down to, an LRM-5 or an SRM-2, anything, and dump more armor into this thing. And then it could be, fast-moving mobile fire support platform. Anyway, survivability on this thing is 67.5%. As you can see, there are a significant number of ammunition deaths. And that's because if you look in the left torso, there's literally nothing there but ammo. So any critical hit on the left torso is going to send this thing sky high. So as soon as you strip off, what is it? It's 11 pips. It's just 11 pips. Again, less armor than structure on this thing. It's going to get absolutely ripped to shreds. Still, 67.5% is actually much higher than I expected. I would think that this thing would be much lower, but I think what we need to look at here is the curve. So in the first several turns, it's actually doing very well. It's only until you get to like turn 9 where you see a significant jump in deaths. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because of the mobility loss. So this thing starts at a +3, it ends below a 2, because it's seeing 32.9%. That means 1 in 3 hits, potentially, or criticals, right, generating a motive hit, because you're not just seeing motive hits in the legs, right, but you've got the arms, which are now legs in this particular design, right, that are also packed with criticals. And I'm looking at the critical chart here. The front legs, the back legs, there's nothing. There's nothing but the actuators in there. There's no heat sinks. There's no jump jets. There's nothing in there. So if you get a critical on the front or rear legs, you're pretty much guaranteed to hit an actuator. What's weird, side fun fact. So let's say, you're banging up my right front leg, you've frozen the hip, you've hit the foot actuator, you've done all these things. And I'm like, I'm moving pretty slow. Actually, on these, the hips don't, freezing a hip does nothing, by the way, until you freeze all 4. It's very weird. But basically, let's say you've hit 3 actuators, I'm at -3 MP or whatever. As soon as you blow off that arm, I actually, I go up higher. It's similar. There's similar behavior with bipedal battle mechs, but it's weirder here because there's basically 3, 6, 9, 12 actuators to hit, and losing a leg is actually, in some regards, beneficial. I like to imagine like the animal that chews off its own arm when it's like stuck in a bear trap. You just shoot your own arm off, or leg for that matter, to make yourself go faster. I don't know. Scorpions are weird, okay? So moving on. I don't know how we got there. I'm sorry about that. Moving on, let's take a look at the efficiency and see how this thing does. All right, so it's not that bad. 5.66. I mean, I would have expected a lot worse, but again, this bargain basement price tag, as I like to call it, battle value of 1098. It just keeps the price down, and so you're not doing as bad as one might think. And let's not forget for a moment, all of the weapons are located in the torso. If you lose two of your legs, you can still stand up like a goofy bipedal mech and kind of like walk around. It's like one of those dogs with the little circus hat on, and you can still shoot your weapons and do stuff. So there's that. Now, what's interesting is the survival rate, again, 67.5%. The damage loss is 13.4%. So the damage loss is basically the separation between our optimized ACD and our effective ACD. And if you remember when we were talking about the curve, it really doesn't start dying until later in the game. Once you either get into that side torso, or you knock off enough legs that it's basically just inert and you can rip it to shreds. But it has some weird behavior. So I kind of want to dig into it and understand why the survivability is not lower. But it doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. So efficiency rating 5.66. What's interesting is the gunnery sensitivity isn't very high, 0.45. Like high sensitivity is like a 0.7 and up. So this isn't like if you put a good gunner in it, it's not really seeing huge rate of return. And conversely, like if you look at the curve, you get 5.66 at gunnery 2. At gunnery 3, you're at 5.11. Like I don't know that I would want to put a gunnery 2 pilot in here and spend 1500 BV on it when I could get away with 1300 BV, or for that matter, considering the things like a walking bomb, just put a skill 4 dude in there and just run it around. Just sprint it in as fast as you can. Running and shooting on the way in, and just get it as close as possible. That seems to be the way to go there. But yeah, speaking of roles, let's dive into that. Let's talk about the role and threat assessment. Okay, so I only picked 2 roles for this particular mech, in line with kind of what we were talking about. The first one is cavalry role. So in a cavalry role, I want to just run this thing and get this thing across the battlefield and up and in my opponent's grill as quickly as possible. Because the erPPC doesn't have a minimum range, which we talked about in the beginning, and because we really want to bring that SRM-6 to bear, we want to get in as quick as possible. And I think this mech, with that high speed, can actually do that pretty well. Speaking of the high speed, the other thing this thing can do well, and if you remember back to the Penetrator, I made the comment about the Penetrator being a light hunter, but it's really too slow to chase light mechs down. This mech is perfect for hunting bugs, right? Like your locusts, your wasps, your stingers, anything that fits, even like a commando, although I might be afraid of a commando in the Scorpion. Things along those lines, I think the Scorpion can chase them down. It can get in close with them. It can tangle with them. And because of its weird, goofy sidestepping, it can probably potentially outmaneuver them in some regards, especially in tough terrain. So I think the Scorpion does have a role as sort of the big dog in a light lance, a pursuit lance or something along those lines, where it can get in close with smaller mechs. So there's that. The other role I picked was skirmisher, and that also has to do with the sidestepping and the range of the erPPC. Now, in this skirmisher role, I think you do need to be careful because you do want to keep that SRM-6 in play. You don't want to leave that thing off the board, out of the equation, I guess is a better way to say it. But using cover, you can be really crafty with the strafing, the sideways maneuvers, right? You can get good shots in. You can move it through like very difficult terrain that otherwise you'd have to be like turn, move. You can just kind of slide this thing over, which is very, very cool. And I think if you can do that, you can very, very much frustrate your opponent. And I would do that if it's not the big dog on the field. If it's the small guy on the field and you're in a heavier lance, I think that's how I would play the Scorpion. I would try to keep it in cover, move it in and out of woods. They do goofy things with it, keep it moving at a high rate of speed when I'm in the open. Maybe on the fringe of like 9 hexes, 9 inches to keep that SRM-6 in play. Or once the target's softened up significantly enough from the erPPC, you can move in. But again, that 10 damage on the erPPC isn't gonna really hurt much, just by itself. I really do think you want to get that SRM-6 in play as much as possible. So that said, that's the Scorpion. Do I love it? Do I hate it? I don't hate it. I think it's okay. I think it's well priced. But if I look at a mech like the Crab, I might want to take that instead. It doesn't have weird armor distribution. Although I will say the Crab has like that weird situation going on with the criticals in the side torsos, or the lack thereof, right? But something that has a little bit more bite to it, potentially. And I wonder though, like if I'm modifying a Scorpion and I want to just make up my own, using our sort of house rules from refits and modifications, dropping the PPC down to a large laser, maybe then adding armor or something along those lines. I think you could probably get mileage out of that, or as I mentioned before, swapping that launcher out from short range to long range and using the tonnage for armor. So I don't know, a few different things I think you could do to just mildly tweak this thing and get more mileage out of it. I don't know what that would do to the battle value per se, but just speculating, guys. Just armchair theory crafting here. But I'm done. All right, I'm done. No more theory crafting. Scorpion's very cool. Love the new model. Can't wait to get my hands on it. I will say this: you should get your hands on the subscribe button. I just like that transition. So slap that subscribe button. Smash it, slap it, whatever. Click the like button, leave a comment, tell me what you think about the Scorpion. Do you have a bias against mechs with more than 2 legs? Do you think they're weird, or do you love them? I won't judge, just tell me what you think. Other than that, guys, check out Aries Games and Minis. That is your one-stop shop for everything BattleTech. It's got the books, the dice, the miniatures. Got all sorts of stuff, the old Ironwind stuff, the new Catalyst stuff, decals, transfers, terrain, all the great stuff over there. So definitely check that out, especially for those new BattleTech players just getting into it and you want to know what's out there. You can always email Derek. He's phenomenal. Customer services is 5 stars. If I could give it 5 stars, I would. So that said, I'm all done, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a good night.